Cabinet as the first ever black African to be an Australian senator. Very much looking forward to what she has to say. Please welcome Senator Gichuhi.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, and most importantly, fellow Australians. Well, how to disagree agreeably. Disagreeing agreeably is an art. Our community needs it more now than ever before to heal a divided nation. It is all how we agree to disagree with each other. Growing up in Kenya, that's in Africa, I learned one of the most valuable lessons as a child, and that is how to disagree agreeably. You see, due to lack of material comforts, such as shoes, or even a bed to call my own, I had to learn how to disagree agreeably with my siblings. As one of 10 children, I had to share everything, and I mean everything, that was available with my siblings, including one Sunday-best dress among 5 of us. I won't change a thing about that childhood. As a Christian, I now know and believe God was preparing me for what lay ahead, a moment like this. My childhood was the most enjoyable part of my life, as my siblings and I were sheltered and protected from poverty and scarcity mentality. We developed spiritual, mental, emotional, and relational abundance mentality. Your circumstances, whatever your situation, God is also preparing you for the task ahead. And he can use anything, as we have heard tonight, in your past or present. This reminds me of Philippians 4, verse 13, which says, I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. I literally believe that. Can we fast forward to 1999? When I landed in Australia with my husband and 3 very young children. My initial impression was how different Australia was compared to the home I had left behind. In Kenya, the majority of people are black Africans. But here, landing in Perth, seemingly all of the world's races were represented just in one city, airport. That was Perth. I encountered Britons, Australians, Europeans, Asians, Africans, everybody from all over the world was represented in that one city. In such an environment, with so many cultures represented, disagreements is inevitable. The way Australian culture has evolved over the years is like when you put a Beloka tablet in water. You know this? This is a Beloka tablet. So, what happens, I call this the Beloka principle. That's my own. And I'm not a scientist. When you drop a Beloka tablet into water, it fizzes and dissolves, making that cha-cha-cha-cha kind of noise. That is, after some time, you no longer have the Beloka tablet, all pure water. it is a new mixture. The clear water does not exist anymore, even if I want it. And the Bailoka tablet is gone. This is what happened when the English arrived in Australia in 1788. While the water is still whistling and about to settle, another culture arrives. And another culture, another wave of culture, which is different from the first one, arrives. The Greeks and the Italians come here. And what happens to the culture? Another tablet. And once again, the Australian culture is evolving. That was around 1820s. Then, just before the culture settles, the Asian arrived in the 1850s, the gold rush period. And the process was repeated over and over again. Another white Baroka. Note, this thing is changing color. My water is not white, it is not pink, it is not purple, it's not even black. And then from about 25 years ago, thank God, the Africans started arriving. There you go. This is the way Australian culture grows. It reminds me that we are all created in the image of God, but within unique gifts, talents, and uniqueness. It is what God intended for all of us here on earth. Unity in diversity. It is therefore goes without saying that living the art of disagreeing agreeably is the way of life for all Australians. This is what we have been living and practicing since 1788. When I migrated to Australia, I had to learn, once again, or practice the art of disagreeing agreeably. I've learned a few lessons which I'll share with you tonight. Lesson 1. And this goes a long way to healing our divided culture, especially after the same-sex marriage debate. So if we can only seek to understand the other side before we expect them to understand ourselves. I had to understand the new culture I came to when I moved to Australia before expecting my host culture to understand me. It was already a mixture, a color I could not recognize, a culture that was still and is still evolving. I was the Bailoka tablet that has just been dropped into that mixture. I learned that this shows respect to my host culture. It does not mean I agree with everything. It just means we can communicate effectively. It starts to create a culture of honor. It shows great respect to the other person or the other party, and they feel understood. They become part of the solution. Respectively seeking to understand is different from blindly accepting or indulging in another person's beliefs or their way of life. Lesson 2. Each one of us is a steward of what God has put in your life. I grew up a Catholic, got married and became a Presbyterian, attended Baptist and Anglican churches, and now I'm told I'm a Pentecostal. I don't really know what all this means. Neither do I really care about it. But I know that that I understand better how to lead my life God's way with valuable contribution from all these groups. I also know how important it is to Jesus Christ that we become one as Christ as it is repeated 4 times in John 17. As a Christian, I have learned to shift my paradigm in order to see myself as a steward, agent, or trustee of whatever God has put in my life, not as a controller, possessor, or even an owner of my circumstances or situations. I've had to resign as the general manager of the universe many times. This makes it very easy to look at the other person's situation, knowing that God has entrusted each one of us with our unique beliefs, gifts, talents. This means that I'm able to see people as instruments of God, and they are here for a reason and a season. Maybe they are here for God to show me one of those blind spots. I think we call this sandpaper ministry. Lesson 3. I learned that I need to guard my spiritual, mental, and emotional freedom. Lesson 4. Fight the root cause of the conflict. Many times, we are hacking at the leaves instead of the roots of the tree. This brings me to an event that happened in the Senate not many weeks ago, when one of the senators put on a burqa in an attempt to express herself. In response, the AG George Bradis said this about that stunt. It has been the advice of each Director General of Security that it is vital for their intelligence and law enforcement work that they work cooperatively with the Muslim community. And to ridicule that community, to drive it into a corner, to mock its religious garments is an appalling thing to do. And I would ask you to reflect on what you have done. I couldn't agree more. The words of the AG show that what happens when we attempt to disagree before we understand what the specific problem is. Lesson 5. Preserve, keep, and say yes to the good. Our Constitution, which may be getting a bit of a workout at the moment, our electoral system, our legal system, our health and welfare systems are very good examples of what works in Australia. Compared to the rest of the world, Sierra Leone, Kenya, and other countries, we know this is good. Lesson 6. Say no to the bad. Stand for what you believe is right with strong belief and conviction. It is okay to say no. And stand by your no within reason. I recently had an opportunity to disagree agreeably in the Senate. I did not agree with the idea of requiring hard-working Australian permanent residents to pass an expensive university-level English test before they became citizens. However, I'm a strong advocate for everyone to become proficient in English language. It's our culture, this culture. The way I disagreed agreeably was to personally appeal to the minister to keep the test at an everyday conversational level, which he did in part, but not sufficiently. We disagreed agreeably. Lesson 7, be proactive. Be in control of your belief system, your mental faculties, your convictions. Lesson 8, forgive and forget if all possible. Unfortunately, unforgiving people try to control other people so they can blame them for their own victim mentality. It is a challenge. Lesson 9, and love is the biggest of them all. Love people. This is the greatest of all things. We must love in freedom and responsibility, not in guilt or manipulation. In conclusion, sitting in the Senate as an independent senator, the art of disagreeing agreeably serves me well. During the debate of education bill, I had to disagree with the opposition. During the debate for citizenship bill, I had to disagree with the government. As a daughter, a wife, a mother, a sibling, a friend, and even a senator, this principle serves me well. It is critical to get the art of disagreeing agreeably right during our turbulent times. Whereas it is an art because it is rare, it is also possible for everyone to learn the art. This is one way that we could heal a divided nation. It involves listening, respecting, and caring for each other. If we can manage to do this, we will put value back into the relationship we should have with God and with each other. Let us all learn to disagree agreeably. Thank you very much.
No, if you sit down there, then we're going to reset the stage. Will you thank Senator Gichuhi once more? What an outstanding contribution. Thank you. We will now reset the stage to allow for our panel to sit and take some responses and questions from you. We want to give you another opportunity to turn to your neighbour now and thinking through all of the speeches tonight that you've heard, what one thought impacted on me, what challenged my typical point of view, is there an action I can take as a result of what I've just heard? We'll have about 3 or 4 minutes for you to talk with your neighbour, and then we'll move the panel, move the tables. You can start doing that now, thank you. You might also want to do this. Grab the FEBC thing that was on your seat, turn to the inside and fill out the part that has you buying radios for people who don't have them. I think it's $30 per radio. You can buy a radio for someone in a closed country, somebody in a desperate situation, someone who needs to hear the truth in a life-changing way. Put your details on that and we'll be able to collect that from you tonight. So there's a great opportunity now for you to do that while you're having your discussion with your colleagues.
Well, yes, it does.
You've got some friends here tonight.
No. No.
I got word out late
Like,
myself.
Well, thank you. If you could draw your conversations to a pause, you'll be able to continue those on the way home. We have just a little time left now for some interaction with our panel. I'm going to start straight off by saying I called you a lawyer. Actually, you're an accountant, so I do apologise for that. Oh, you both?
Yes.
Now I have to apologise to Michael, who is a lawyer. Oh my goodness, how much trouble can one man get in at one time? And hello to my friend and former colleague, the former member for Cronulla, Malcolm Kerr. Just saw you there, a member of this House for a very distinguished period of time. Great having you with us, Malcolm. Senator, you challenged us to go to the root cause, not just beat around the leaves, but to go to the root cause. When we go to the root cause of an issue like, shall we say, same-sex marriage, what do we find there?
What we find is different cultures and people with different values. And as much as we may want to say one position is right, we just need to recognize that we have people coming from their conviction and belief system and who they are, and they believe in one position. If we can only try to put ourselves in their shoes as much as possible, then we would respect their presence, their voice, and acknowledge, especially for those of us who are Christians, that God is teaching us something. Maybe our bright spots, how much have we covered these other sexual sins that we don't talk about? Christianity, we have really negotiated and lowered the standard of our sexual issues that we can tolerate. So this particular one, who knows? I don't know. I would just think we need to reason to each other and recognize everything that is happening is God's way of speaking to us. Maybe the sandpaper ministry.
There's plenty of work to be done in this debate when the results come out in a week or so. Where do we start with that work, Michael Callaghan?
So
Where do we start to do that work? Because this isn't the end, this is the beginning. And in many cases, we're beginning 10 steps behind where we were before we started.
Yeah, look, I think some of that is happening already. So obviously people are already talking about the future, regardless of the outcome. And certainly I only agree with the Senator that it takes listening and empathetic listening that's able to put yourselves in the shoes of another and to understand that people are coming out of a place of conviction.
Aminata, you spoke about a forgiveness that I think is almost beyond many people, the ability to reach out and find forgiveness for a person even when they've not asked for it. And in fact, as what I heard you say, especially because they haven't asked for it. Mm. Is that, to your mind, is that part of this current debate, that there are hurts there and forgiveness can't be found?
Well, I think so. I think a lot of people, again, we don't understand, sometimes we don't understand the circumstances of an individual. And again, as Lucy said, to pay attention and to respect and to listen to one another, because that's the only way we can solve issue or solve a problem when there's discussion like this going on. But it's very hard to make a judgment on things that we do not understand, except if we try to, again, listen and show more respect to one another. Yeah.
The questions from the floor. We have 2 roving microphones. Yes, right there. Thank you. I'll go 1, and then 2, and then behind you to 3.
One of the points that came up tonight was the temptation to be silent, so particularly around the discussion of same-sex marriage and that sort of thing, especially when we see things like, I suppose, the yes side accuse the no side of,
bigotry.
Bigotry or accuse it of hate speech. So therefore my question is, where does free speech end and hate speech begin?
Okay, who's going to tackle that one? Go for it, Michael.
Look, I think we need to be very careful with language of hate speech, and certainly the media have been very loose in describing all sorts of things as hate speech, and I think certain legislators are looking at that now and kind of lowering the bar, and it will vary from state to state, but we've got to, I think, really try and connect hate speech to incitement to violence, to actually have quite a high bar for what actually is hate speech, and to say, look, there may well be speech which can offend, which is despicable, which you don't like, but it's better to have that speech out and to judge people on the basis of it, and for us to be able to judge ideas on their merit rather than start banning speech.
The man in the pink shirt was next. Thank you, Michael. Yep, we'll have to get that microphone to you in the middle. And then after you, it's the guy behind you, had his hand up as well. Thank you.
On the topic of disagreeing well, I think particularly on social media, we can get a lot of shouting matches happening. And so I suppose my question is do we try and speak into that, and if so, how? Or is it better for us to try and start a new conversation and a better conversation?
Yeah, Lucy, do you want to take that one?
Yes. A lot of the times when I get or anybody gets a message that you don't agree with, the first thing to ask myself is, am I qualified to participate in this debate? Is it my area? If it's not my area, I'll let it pass. If it is an area I can speak to, I will speak to it from a point of knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. If I can't answer the three of them, once again, I'll let it pass. And that is not being silent. I think that is being somewhere between coexisting. Because you don't know, if you can't understand where this other person is coming from, then you are not qualified to speak to it. And I think as people of severity and dignity, you just, do I have the knowledge to respond to this debate? Do I have the understanding? And do I have wisdom? If any of those is no, I would let it pass.
No, it was the man in the next row back. I can't remember exactly which of you it was. Was it you, sir? Or was it further back? There was someone.
I had a question.
Oh, it was you. That's it.
Yeah, thank you. Amanada, as someone who works in mental health, I know that a lot of people who experience sexual trauma have PTSD, and it's obviously a very big problem. I'm just wondering, when you gave forgiveness, I'm assuming you did have PTSD. I'm sorry if that's being presumptuous.
No.
But I'm wondering if that had an impact on PTSD for you.
No, I don't think so. Absolutely not. I think I truly believe, and I do believe when I wanted to forgive, it was more true from what I've learned and through God's word, what that would benefit me, and that it's about me experiencing my freedom that He has given to me, not by these people. So it didn't really come from there at all. Again, it's a process. It took a long time. It's stages that it happens. You don't just wake up one morning and you go like, I want to forgive that person. That's why I said it's an act. It's something that you work on, and then you find the beneficial of it, and then you realize that it benefits you, not the person that has offended you. So it didn't really come from, well, where I come from, Sierra Leone, we don't really get that. In Africa or Sierra Leone, where I come from, I'll talk about Sierra Leone, we don't really understand that PTSD and all that. When you come here, you get to know that. But it really comes from the word. That's all it came from. And of course, you get struggled through that, but that's part of just life experience, and that's part of the healing. Because that's why I feel like it's a selfish act, because it is, you are healing yourself from what has happened to you, that wound. So yes.
Can I leapfrog from that to the question of our Indigenous people? Unlike, say, South Africa or Canada or indeed New Zealand, we've not been through a process of listening, really. And this week has shown me that we've stopped listening yet again. Amanada, can I ask you then? I'm going to ask our other panellists.
Yep.
How do we start to approach that question from a healing point of view?
From Listening?
Well, the question of our Indigenous people, if we're not listening to them.
Well, I always say it is the first part of understanding somebody, because you really cannot understand me and my culture or my character if you have not really paid attention or listened to me. So it's a form of respecting that person or what they've been through or what they are now. So I look at listening as respecting the individual. So, and without that, you can't really show respect. You can't really show respect if you have not listened to that person's point of view. So you'll not be able to disagree or agree. So that's how I looked at. Yeah, that's how I view listening. So.
Michael, what do you think?
It was interesting that David Brooks' comment before about the connectedness to a sense of space, and I just know, spending just a small amount of time with some Indigenous brothers and sisters, that they've said that connection is just the deepest thing for them. That connection to land and country and law and family and those things that run deep. And I'm only just starting to hear some of that and to learn from them.
So, Senator Gichuhi, you get the last word on this question. What do you make of the Prime Minister's decision not to allow a conversation to take place about an Aboriginal representative organisation speaking into the Parliament, providing advice?
What I think is every leadership comes from God. And every leadership, every Prime Minister has a mission, specific mission and purpose. I'm so sure there is going to come one leader at a time we don't know, I think, this is my just saying, who will pay attention to the root cause of the cultural connection of this country. And it is only that the time is not here. So we don't know, but that time is coming and it will come, and we don't know which Prime Minister, when that will be addressed. But it is a need, it is an area, and it will be addressed at some point.
Wow. Well, that's a great answer, and I think that's a great place to leave it because we are out of time for tonight. Thank you very much. I noticed earlier that most of you are new to Q Commons this year, and we deeply appreciate having you here with us. We do hope that you'll stay connected to the movement, and some emails will come to you inviting you to other things in the future. So once again, thank you. Thank you for being with us. Please go and see the FEBC people and buy at least one radio on the way out. And on behalf of Q Commons, on behalf of the sponsors FEBC, Hope 1032 and Christian Media and the Arts Australia, I'd say good night and God bless.
What does it mean?